Welcome to the Near Death Network, our expert panel on everything near-death experience. We're going to talk about a variety of topics. And today, we're going to talk about how these experiencers and this clinician who's joining me on the set today view the near-death experience, how they handled that type of information before they had their actual event. Before we start with all of these individuals, though, I just want to give you a pretty sobering statistic. It's estimated by IANS, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies, that anywhere from 4 to 15% of the world's population have had some form of a near-death experience. So that's anywhere from just shy of 400 million to 1.2 billion people. So this is not an isolated incident. These are actually occurrences that happen every day, and these are examples of what happens. So I have Kelly, Barbara, Jeff, Ellen, and Dr. Jeff joining me on the stage today. And let's start with you, Kelly. What was your life like before you had your near-death experience? What was going on in your life at that time?
I pretty much had a victim mentality for 38 years. And I lived a life where I perceived everything that was happening to me versus for me. If something happened in a normal person's life, and I say normal because I was a very depressed, anxious person, I think most people have a capacity to recognize this is temporary. But I didn't see it that way. I saw everything as a buildup of living in that victim mentality. And that mentality created my outcome and my experience. So I lived a pretty big journey of feeling like life was just tumbling me over and over again.
And that happens to so many people in the world today, so that's why you're so important to this discussion. Barbara, let's take you back to your experience in your life before you had your near-death experience. What was Barbara's life like?
Well, I'd always been a pretty cheerful, happy kid, and I ended up coming down to Santa Barbara, California, and marrying someone that I didn't know very well. He had met me up in Oregon where I lived, and it turned out that he was extremely abusive. He had anger issues, and I didn't know how to get out of the situation. So I was pretty trapped in a really painful, traumatic situation.
So it's similar to Kelly in that you kind of the victim, you couldn't extricate yourself from it. It was very difficult? Or?
Yeah, I didn't have the money to leave. I didn't have the support system to leave, and I didn't know where I would go. So I was staying, trying to hopefully change his behavior, but it just wasn't happening.
Well, thank you, Barbara. Jeff, why don't you enlighten us about what was going on in your life before your near-death experience?
Well, before my near-death experience, I grew up on a rough and tumble family farm with a single father and 2 brothers, and it was, you had to show up first with the most, get the grade, make the team, get the girl, a very driven, masculine background. I ended up going to college and playing football on a Division I scholarship, and I always had an artistic side. I became an artist, but in a creative way in marketing. But that was even still very competitive. Gosh, you got to beat the other guy. You got to get the account.
So kind of type A.
Yeah, type A, red, go, fight, win personality, which shifted drastically.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much. Let's move on to Ellen. What was Ellen's life like before? And you were considerably younger than the rest of the panel when you had your near-death experience.
I was, before my head injury, before the accident. I was 12 years old, and honestly, I lost my memory prior to my accident. So I can only go off what I was told, and I was told I was a very happy kid and just loved horses, and that, I just seemed to be very happy, normal, everyday kid. So everything really started for me in my life the moment that the accident happened. That was the beginning of everything for me. And it's almost a gift that I don't remember before that, because it's as if I know my purpose really clearly because of my head injury, my near-death experience.
Can't wait to hear more about it. Dr. Jeff, not personally had a near-death experience, but you were Jeff's attending at the trauma center when he was brought in. and you've had over 25 years of emergency medicine, now moved into your own track in spirituality. What did you see as a clinician that really enabled you to visualize that consciousness extends beyond physical death?
My experiences actually started in childhood, about the same age as you. I was
Wow.
a month before my 12th birthday when my older brother was killed in a farm accident. And it was shortly after that that I started to have experiences as a teenager, sometimes hearing messages and sometimes seeing people who were no longer in their physical form. And so that was an experience that was almost common for me by the time I went through medical school and started practicing as an emergency physician. And then for 25 years in the emergency department, I would periodically see people leave their bodies when they passed and communicate with them before they left this realm.
And there's a lot of pressure on clinicians not to be revealing of those types of happenstances that you ran into in the operating room, because there's a lot of pressure on you to stay right down the middle, correct?
Yes, I didn't speak about my experiences until I stopped seeing patients. But when you're practicing medicine, you're fully committed to the science and the physicality of it. And when Jeff Olson was brought to my emergency department, he was unconscious. In the trauma room, there was another doctor, a whole team of people taking care of him. And so I had absolutely no responsibility for his medical care, which I think is why I was able to have the profound experience I did, which was seeing his deceased wife standing above him in the trauma room and communicating with her, because I didn't have the medical demands of the physical world upon me at that moment.
Well, and that's a great way to tease our next segment as we continue here on the Near Death Network. Our expert panel will talk about their specific experiences in their near-death experience, some remarkable stories that you have to stay around to listen to, because each and every one is unique to these individuals, and there's a lot of great lessons in there.